listening to Millcaster Tales, brought to you by knowhownonprofit.org.
The Cat That Got the Cream, Part 1. Jan, the new chair of the board at MillCat Trust, has got boundless energy and big ideas for reorganising the charity. However, she needs to convince the trustees and her director to go along with her plans. A balmy Mediterranean night on the Greek isle of Maurikos. But Maureen, a trustee of MillCat Trust holidaying here, can hardly finish her moussaka as she watches the emaciated stray cats circling the taverna tables begging for scraps. Sipping her Retsina, she decides that MillCat Trust should be involving itself far more deeply in international work on behalf of the fast-increasing feline population of the world. Meanwhile, back in a cold and rainy Millcaster, Jan, the new chair of the Board of Trustees, meets Chris, the charity's director, upstairs at the MillCat offices. Jan is determined to brighten Chris's day, and she begins by telling Chris she's been in touch with Voluntary Action Millcaster. They've offered to run a full day's workshop, an away day, for trustees on forward strategic planning for the trust, enthuses Jan. Chris, a man already snowed under with paperwork and admin bumf, manages a weak smile. His enthusiasm is underwhelming, but Jan is undeterred. Maureen, now back from the Grecian sun, outlines her international vision for MillCat in the 21st century to Ron, another trustee who thinks her ideas are great. The cat's whiskers. That's the kind of thinking MillCat should be engaged in, not this palaver. They are sharing a car, travelling reluctantly to Jan's away day. She is determined that this year MillCat Trust will put together a full strategic business plan for all its work. It's a proposal Maureen and Ron regard as bureaucracy gone mad. At the Millpost Hotel, Jan is relieved and encouraged to see that everyone has turned up, even Maureen and Ron. But as the trustees enjoy complimentary tea and biscuits in the Rochester room of Millcaster's only 4-star accommodation, Jan can't fail to hear Ron's loudly expressed opinion. MillCat is not a business, and bringing us all here at huge expense to witter on about strategic planning is a waste of trustee time and money. Jan had already been warned that Ron, though a stalwart and untiring member of the board, was also notoriously grumpy. But her anxiety levels rise when she notices that the charity's director, Chris, is nodding a diplomatic agreement to both Ron and Maureen. Jan nervously rattles her pen against a teacup and introduces Alan to the assembled trustees. Alan is a development worker from Voluntary Action Millcaster, who today is going to guide us through the complexities of setting up a business plan. Alan gets them into groups and, working with flip charts, begins to explain something called pestle analysis, which can assist organisations like MillCat to identify the key political, economic, social, legal and environmental influences and trends that might affect future development and success in the light of emerging government policy. Soon Ron's eyes begin to roll heavenward. He's thinking of that Persian blue, rescued from a crack den by MillCat friends last week, and that litter of ragamuffin kittens saved from drowning, and every single one of them rehomed. This is what he joined the trust for all those 20 years ago. Nobody talked about rolling out programmes then, or rattled on about Politico's socio-economic cost analysis, with endless flipping flip charts. It's doing his head in. During a fag break in the grounds of the Millpost Hotel, Ron moans to Maureen. I'm wasting my Saturday here. I signed up 20 new MillCat friends last weekend on Millcaster High Street. If we all got down there on the stalls, now, rattling the tins, that would be a damn sight more useful to the long-term viability of MillCat Trust. As Jan reconvenes the meeting, she is aware that Ron and at least 2 other trustees have not returned after the break. Maureen mutters awkwardly, Ron had something else on. He sends his apologies. This was what Jan feared most. Alan, from Voluntary Action Millcaster, looks ruefully at her. Chris, the director, shrugs an "I told you so" frown to her. As Jan now looks nervously around the room, into the watching eyes of the remaining trustees, all of them sharp as any cats, she senses that mutiny is not far below the surface.
You've been listening to Millcaster Tales. Keep up to date with the latest Millcaster events and discussions at knowhownonprofit.org.